Now recently, a brand new KTM middleweight sports bike has been spied out testing, and I reckon it looks like it's going to be an absolutely cracking bike. So in this video, I'll give you 5 reasons why this could be one of the best new bikes to be announced in 2023. Now almost certainly, looking at the wheels and the hardware and the chassis and what we can see of the engine, it's going to be somewhat related to their existing middleweight bikes, and for me, that's massively a good thing. You see, KTM makes some of the best bikes on the market from their 890 platform. Take the 890 Duke R for example, with its awesome lively parallel twin that makes it super entertaining to ride, and then a razor sharp chassis that makes it, for my money, pretty much the most fun you can have on the road. Or you've got the 890 Adventure, just updated for this year, but when I rode the previous generation, again it was one of my favourite middleweight adventure bikes I've ever ridden, if not the best. And it's that winning combination of a great engine, albeit slightly detuned to make it more fit for adventure bike riding, and then great handling characteristics both on-road and off that make it super approachable and easy to ride, and therefore loads of fun. If this RC990 does come to fruition, and given that it looks like it could share some componentry like the brakes, suspension, wheels, the frame, roughly with the Duke, then you've got to expect it to be right up there with the best middleweight sports bikes on the market. In fact, it could be even better to ride than the Duke, for although it's almost certainly the same parallel twin engine layout, it's possible that the engine is actually all new. This could allow them to increase the capacity up by another 100 cc's, and that could of course lead to more power. Bennett's Bike Social recently uncovered these designs of an updated LC8C engine, which would presumably be used in this bike. And while it's similar at first glance, there's actually very little carried over from the current 890. Plus, it's visibly taller in the cylinder block, which means potentially more capacity with a longer stroke. So while the current 890 Duke R makes plenty of power at 121 horses, with the extra displacement, this RC machine could make more like between 130 and 140. And so combined with the torquey nature of a big parallel twin like that, it ought to make for plenty of usable grunt, which would provide bags of entertainment on the road. Now look, I've not always been the biggest fan of KTM styling. It's always brash and orange and angular no matter what the application, but I think their general ethos works best with bikes that ought to be brash and orange and angular, just like a sports bike. Now although there's no paint on it yet and there's still plenty of bodged hardware while they're making tweaks, the general shape of this bike looks pretty good so far. It's definitely got a hint of the RC390 about it, but with a bit more presence. And it also has a little in common with their super premium track offering, the RC8C, just without those winglets that look like a big droopy mustache, and so I could kinda do without those anyway. Sure, it's not quite the finished article yet, but personally I like the general stance of it, and I like that single LED projector headlight, and so overall it looks like it should make for a pretty nice looking bike. Now in the past, KTM have said that they're not planning to build any big capacity sports bikes for the road because they really just belong on the track, and that's why they've built nothing bigger than the RC390 for the past 10 years or so, ever since the RC8 died out. So in building this bike, they've clearly aimed to make something that's not just a balls out track bike, but also something that will work primarily on the road and with a bit of practicality in mind. Now you can see this in the riding position, because although it does look sporty and certainly more aggressive than the 890 Duke, it still doesn't look super extreme, and if you put it next to something like a Panigale, you can see that the bars are quite high up and less aggressive. So hopefully it's a riding position that you can maintain for decent stints on the road, and that should make it more comfortable and better to use day in, day out. Also, from the testing pics, you can see that they've got someone on the back there potentially trying out the pillion seat, and there's also a big bracket for the passenger foot pegs with lots of adjustment possible, and so that suggests they're still testing out the peg position too. I mean, it's never going to compete with a Goldwing for comfort, but still it doesn't look too extreme, and it should be a bike that you can feasibly ride 2 up. Now, although it looks like we're still quite away from it being properly announced, let's just assume the price has to be somewhere just north of the 890 Duke R. Now, that bike currently sells for £11,599, so let's just say for a sports bike version, about 12.5 or 13 grand. That is still a lot of money, but consider that the only other KTM mid-capacity sports bike that you could have bought of late is that RC8C Track Special. It certainly looks like an impressive bike with loads of upgrades across the the board, but the price point of £34,999 is absolutely astronomical, so to own something roughly based upon the same platform for less than half the price could be seen as a good deal. 35 grand is a heck of a lot of money though, so can that RC8C be anywhere near worth it? Well, if you want the full details, I've linked to our video on the screen now and you can give it a watch, make your mind up, and let us know in the comments. And if you're new here and you want to see more of the latest motorcycle news right here on YouTube, then hit subscribe and we'll catch you in the next one.